I want to welcome you all here this morning on behalf of the family. This is a special occasion where we remember a special woman. Today's a day that's about grieving together, but also celebrating together. It's a day of looking back and remembering and honoring, but it is also a day of looking forward and anticipating the time when we get to join Ruby where she is now. Today we are going to remember someone who's very special. Ruby, I've said several times to different people this week, is unusual in my mind as someone who was so sweet and so very tough at the same time. There's few people that I know who so embody both of those things to the degree that she did. Incredible strength, incredible kindness and love. Today we remember her, we honor her, and we also come together to support and love one another. I'm going to begin with a prayer, and then we'll have a song as we begin this service in time of memory together. Father God, we come to you today so thankful that we can trust you to take care of your daughter and our sister, Ruby. Father, you gave her a great life of courage and love, one that is an example to so many. More than are here today have been blessed by her through her We Care campaigns, through her work with Bill and all the things they've done in the church. Father, we are so thankful for the impact she made in the lives of her children and grandchildren and churches, in the lives of everyone she came in contact with. But Father, today I also ask that you would be with those here in this room, that you would give them incredible comfort, that you would help them to know peace, that you would help them to grieve well, that you would help them to know that they are never alone as long as they have you and those who are in this room here today who love them and support them to get them through this and all the other challenges that come our way in life. Father, I thank you for the hope that allows us to deal with a day like today differently. And ask that we would cling to that in our tough moments. We ask all these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Number 786, it'll be on the screen. Follow along with me. And we're going to start at the chorus. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When my way groweth drear, precious Lord, linger near. When my life is almost gone, hear my cry, hear my call, hold my hand lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When the shadows appear and the night draweth near, and the day is past and gone. At the river I stand, guide my feet, hold my hand. take my hand. Precious Lord, lead me home. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, lest I stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home.
You fill up my senses like night in a forest, like the mountains in springtime, like a walk in the rain, like a storm in the desert, like a sleepy blue ocean. You fill up my senses, come fill me again. Come, let me love you, let me give my life to you. Let me drown in your laughter, let me die in your arms. Let me lay down beside you, let me always be with you. Come, let me love you, come love me Let me give my life to you. Come, let me love you. Come, love me again. You fill up my senses like a night in a forest, like the mountains in springtime, like a walk in the rain, like a storm in the desert, like a sleepy blue ocean. You fill up my senses, come fill me again.
It's Mom. We just got home, and I saw a message on the phone. Love you. Bye-bye. Please.
Last night I had a crazy dream. Wish was granted just for me. It could be for anything. didn't ask for money or a mansion in Malibu. I simply wished for one more day with you. One more day, one more time, one more sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied. But then again, I know what it would do. Leave me wishing still for one more day with you. One more day. First thing I do is pray for time to grow. I'd unplug the telephone, keep the TV off. I'd hold you every second, say a million I love yous. That's what I do with one more day with you. One more day, one more time, one more sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied. But then again, I know what it would do. Leave me wishing still for one more day with you. One more day, one more time, one more sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied. But then again, I know what it would. Leave me wishing still one more day. Leave me wishing still one more day. Leave me wishing still one more day with you. One more day, one more day.
Dear Jamie, I hope you're sleeping. You need to take a nap to celebrate your birthday and how much you have helped me. I want God to bless you extra. See you later, honey. Bye-bye.
And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do, saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway. more, much more than this. I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall, and did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried, I've had my fill, my share of losing, and now as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way, oh no, not me. I did it my way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my Yes, it was my way.
Hey, sweetie, it's Grandma. Whenever you want to go, just holler at me. Like catching those wiggly things. Okay, love you. Bye.
Okay, Grandma, you can go yours out.
Grandma, you need help?
Probably. But I am a big win, so.
Everybody blow at once.
See,
One, two.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, and the dreams that you dream of once in a lullaby. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true. Ooh, up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like lemon drops high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, and the dream that you dare to, oh why can't oh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like a lemon drops high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. The dream that you dare to, why, oh why can't
Wow, precious memories, huh? Goodness. Bill was sharing with me just before we got started something that I didn't know. I know that they were involved in the We Care Ministries, and that's a program where they go and they have a meeting in a community, and they just let the community know we care about you. And in the process, they're able to set up a few Bible studies. And he said that they had he and Ruby had 170 or 71, 171 Bible studies out of that, and 168 conversions out of that. Yeah, that's great. Had an impact. This is a point in the service that we want to do some personal sharing. I asked the family to jot down some things that they would like shared with you, and I'm going to read those. And then afterwards, if someone else has something they would like to share, this would be the time to do it. Okay. So the first one I have here is from Bob, and he says, "Fond memories of my mother. Sunday lunch that she would put in the oven before we left for church. Her chicken and rice was always my favorite. I once asked her after I got married if I could get her recipe, and she replied, 'It's on the soup can.'" That sounds like Ruby, doesn't it? Yeah. "Homemade ice cream with a hand-cranked maker." How many of you have made homemade ice cream with a hand cranker? Boy, I have, lots of times. How she liked to take a small sample from each chocolate candy in a box so to prioritize how she ate them. She was a talented artist and worked with a variety of media from sewing to ceramics and oil painting. By the way, there's a little painting out here in the foyer that she painted. It's small, you'll recognize it, it's a cross. It says the best is yet to come. She did that. She was never one to be late, and I'm glad she instilled that behavior to me. It has always served me well, always better to be early than late. This one is from Jim, and he says, "My mother has always been great at sharing. One of my earlier memories is of the times my dad would bring home a large box of assorted chocolates, a common theme there, which she much enjoyed. Upon getting the box open, she did something so unique, we all laughed about it as we got older. She has always, to my knowledge, had fingernails at least an inch long, which I called daggers. But what she would do is take her dagger and take out the corner of each piece of chocolate so she could find her favorite, and then would pass it around so everyone could have some. It made it easy for us to choose, also knowing that what each piece center is. Even though they were all for her, we all enjoyed. Growing up, we never went fishing other than an occasional catfish farm where they provide the poles. When my mom started fishing in her 60s, I was totally surprised. She not only started, she became a die-hard fisherwoman. I mean, she was not a morning person at all, nor was she really awake, as whole family joked about it until 10 a.m. But if you mentioned going fishing the next day, she would light up and insist on being at the lake before sunrise, even if that meant leaving the house at 5 a.m. She was ready. It didn't matter what kind of fish hit her hooks, she got excited about it. There was this one time we all went fishing from shore with her. If I wasn't there to witness it, I would say it was a fish story. You know what fish stories are, right? Okay. And we were all fishing for crappie or bluegill, and she found a spot that she was catching a good number of bluegills. She caught another fish and was bringing it in when all of a sudden her line got tighter and started going back out. She had no idea what was happening, but she worked that fish back towards shore. When the fish got in about 6 to 9 inches of water, it was a big catfish. It opened its mouth when it couldn't hardly swim, and it released its breakfast fish. There was no hook in the fish. Instead of trying to swim away, it went after her string of fish. With no hesitation, Mom jumped in the water and grabbed the large catfish with her bare hands and got her and the fish on shore. Mind you, she was in her early 70s. There was about 15 other people fishing in the area, and most of them were kids, but when they all saw that what she did, they called her the king of fishing. And they all wanted to meet her and her fish. The fish weighed in at 30 pounds. It's the picture of her holding a fish with her slacks rolled up in the video. It was an amazing catfish fry day. Most people don't know this, but she is why I love to fish and is the one that persuaded me to buy a boat. She just loved being around God's nature on the water or at the shore. If you have been to my parents' house or any of her kids' house, you would have seen some of her beautiful oil paintings. As I said, there's one out here. She had an eye for color and detail. What you may not know, she studied painting by watching it from TV PBS and recording art classes on VHS tape. What's VHS? Anybody remember that? She learned different techniques and what each brush can do in order to perfect her art. What she didn't get from TV, she learned on her own. Amazing with her skills. I would sometimes wonder what she could have done if she was professionally trained. Thankfully, she didn't just keep her art on canvas. Over the years, I renovated different homes and I would coordinate the color schemes and ideas with her. She learned a ton while traveling with We Care Ministries and the many houses she visited. A phase would often come out. Now, probably a phrase would often come out. Now I've seen something like this in one of the homes we were in. What if we do this right here? She had such a creative mind. Her ideas on what to do with houses always came out with great success. Most recently, she came over to the house I was getting ready to move into and told her I was looking into removing the carpet and painting it. Before I could finish talking, she interrupted me with, yes, I want to paint it. Will you let me paint it? She was 80 years old and in pain a lot, and I didn't know if she could handle doing it and without missing a beat. She said, I can do this. May not be fast, but I want to do this. One thing about my mom is that when she made up her mind, you can't change it. While working on the stairs, she asked me if she could try something new. Is that the slide we saw working? She was down on the ground taping off the staircase. Knowing my mom's artistic mind, I told her yes, not knowing what she was actually going to do. What she created was an amazing design, unlike any other staircase. My mom always saw things different and had a gift where she made the simplest things extremely pretty. She could even see people better than they saw themselves, which I believe the Lord used to make her a great soul winner for Him. Thankfully, she had the skills to pass this gift and the gift of her art to all her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. She was such a blessing to have in our lives, and her presence will help all the lives of our family, all the lives our family touches, thanks to her gift. I remember when they first came to church here, I was the pulpit minister at the time, and she was sick in the hospital, and I went up to visit them. And when I walked in the room, there was a lady there with a man in regular street clothes. And I walked in, introduced myself, and asked them, if they were family. And they said no. And she said she was a nurse there. And I thought, well, you're not dressed like a nurse. And Bill and Ruby had been talking to her about Jesus. And she came back with her husband. Or boyfriend, I think it was boyfriend, to hear more. And so here's Ruby all stove up in bed and talking to them about Jesus, and got the nurse so interested that they came back to hear more. This is from Faith, and she says, this is my mom. The first thing people noticed about my mom was her brilliant smile. Boy, that's a truth. I saw her just a couple of days before she passed away, and she had difficulty, but she had a biggest smile on her face almost the whole time I was there. She would light up the room with her smile. She was a gorgeous woman who was always conscious of her appearance. She wasn't vain. She just always wanted to put her best foot forward. She felt better when she looked her best, but looks were not her primary focus. She would be the first person to tell you that it's not the outward appearance that matters, but it's the inner beauty that counts. God sees your inside, not your outside. Even looking back on some of my earliest memories, I can remember my mom always teaching about God. She used to teach the nursery class at church or the youth class, and then the woman's class. She worked with We Care with Dad and the Wests. Public speaking was difficult for her, but she felt it was what God needed her to do, so she did it. She really loved teaching the kids. She always brought a bag of goodies, probably those chocolate candies, to church for the kids. She'd line up the church kids beside her on a pew and give them Bible pictures to color or puzzles to solve. If they were good, she'd reward them with a treat. She didn't put up with misbehavior, however. She'd line us Oden kids up in the pew in front of her and liberally apply thumpings to the back of our heads if we talked or disrupted the service. Might be a good example. Even with a gaggle of children to herd, my mom would listen to the sermon and take notes in her Bible. Looking back, I'd have to say she must have had extra hands and eyes. She definitely had bionic hearing. One of her favorite callings was church camp. She loved church camp. She would collect them to bring all year long. She would teach arts and crafts while Dad taught Bible. She would bring piles of rocks to paint and all manner of things people were going to throw away, like buttons, ribbons, lace, and pictures from magazines. She could decoupage, paint, fire ceramics, and paper mache with the best of them. She was an expert in acrylics, oils, charcoal, and pencil. If it was art, she could do it. She was one of the best camp art teachers ever, and the kids loved her classes. Another thing I remember from growing up was my mom counseling women and girls. She was always taking someone aside and getting their story. She had a way of giving that person all of her attention and making them feel like she was really listening. She'd do this at camp, at church, and in our home, or theirs. She wanted those women to know that God loved them, and so did she. She was friends with women all over the United States. My mom had fun too. She loved to fish. She would fish with anyone who would ask her. One of the last outings she enjoyed before she became bedridden was a fishing trip with my children, Jamie and Robert. She once noodled a giant catfish when she was in her 60s. That's probably the story we just read, right? Now, noodling, I hate to break this, but noodling is when you stick your hand up inside their mouth and get a hold of them. Tough woman. This catfish weighed over 30 pounds, and Mom was determined, so she got it in the water and noodled it up to shore. Afterwards, she could believe she did it, but somewhere there's a picture. She couldn't believe she did it, but there's a picture. She kept that sense of humor until the very end. The day the hospice intake evaluator came out, she was bedridden and suffering memory loss, but still cracked a joke. The hospice worker was assessing her mental condition and asked her several questions. When she asked Mom if she knew who the president was, Mom didn't answer. She asked again, and Mom very slowly said, "His name is not in my vocabulary." Then she asked her again if she knew who the president was, and she paused and softly said, "Not who I wanted." So I asked Mom if she could tell the worker who she wanted, and Mom said, "Trump." The worker said, "I'll take that." One of the things that most people don't know about my mom was that she could pinch two pennies together and make a nickel. She was always on a budget and always told you she was broke. But if I needed a new dress or a pair of shoes, she would dig into her purse and pull $10 out of her glasses case and $5 out of her wallet. Then she'd go to the bedroom and pull more money out of her jewelry box and her underwear drawer. She had money hidden everywhere and could always find a way to pay for anything we needed. I wouldn't be surprised if we went to the bedroom now and found her mattress stuffed full of dollar bills. Have y'all done that? Well, I'm needing a new mattress, so. Not only did my mom love the Lord, but she loved her family. We always spent Thanksgiving with Mom and Dad and Christmas with our family. So Thanksgiving was a combination of Thanksgiving and Christmas rolled into one. Mom would plan a massive meal, and she always made the mashed potatoes and giblet gravy. I regret that I never learned how to make giblet gravy. Her mashed potatoes were sinful because she always added lots of butter, cream, and cream cheese. I have her favorite mashed potato bowl and only use it for mashed potatoes to this day. In addition to the meal, Mom would have gifts for all the grandkids, and she would always have an age-appropriate arts and crafts project to do. She was always trying to instill art into the kids. In part due to her, my youngest son, Court, is an artist and photographer. She always wanted to see his latest projects and encourage his pursuits. Speaking of art, Mom was always willing to paint for any of us who had a need. She helped my daughter by painting the faces on the dolls that Jamie was refurbishing. She was always helping me by repainting my flower garden decorations when they lost all color. She loved color. She painted pictures for everyone in the family, and my walls are covered with my mom's art. I pray that everything around her now will be all the colors of the rainbow. Not only was Mom a wonderful artist, but she was a talented seamstress. I think everyone in the family has something Mom sewed. It might be an oven mitt and hot pad or a shirt or even a dress. I will cherish every time she made for me, every item she made for me. She didn't have a lot of money, but she showed her love by spending her time making things for all of us. We were her focus. My mom's priorities were always God first, then family, then others. There is so much more I could write, but you don't have the time, and I couldn't do it justice. But this is my mom. She was the first person I turned to when I was happy or in pain. She was my anchor, and I will miss her forever. I know she's in heaven and beautiful and happy, but she'll be forever missed here on earth, especially by me. I love you, Mama. Faith Sanders. This one is the last one that I have, and then we'll open it up to anyone else that might have comments. This is from Bill, and he says, a tribute to my wife, Ruby. Our lives together has been a blessing to me. From the time that we met, some 58 years ago, she was an individual that was beautiful on the outside as well as on the inside. Her smile was contagious, and her spirit attracted people to her. She loved the Lord with all of her heart and gave to him a dedicated life of service. Her one desire was to see that people knew Jesus. In our many years together in We Care Ministries, she was able to touch the hearts of so many. There are countless numbers who are now part of the kingdom of her Lord because she loved him and wanted them to know him. She was always there for me. She uplifted me, she cared for me, she loved me, and gave herself to me unconditionally. When I was down and out, she was there to uplift me. When I wanted to give up, she spurred me on and encouraged me not to do so. The words in Psalm 51 so describe my beautiful Ruby. A blessing to so many is evidenced by your presence here today. She loved life, she loved having a good time, and she loved to fish more than eat. I remember many times she would have the day's activity planned, and one of our children would call and ask if she wanted to go fishing, or for some reason or another, all of those plans went aside and she went fishing. She was just a joy to be around. She always tried to look at the positive side of life and to say something positive to those who were down and out. There isn't really any words to describe this beautiful woman. The body she lived in gave her all kinds of pain, but she never complained. Her attitude was always positive, as was her outlook on life. She had a beautiful spirit inside her that was demonstrated by the life she lived. She had physical birthdays here upon this earth, but that ended. But now she has a heavenly birthday that will never end. Ruby, I love you. I will be with you one day. May you enjoy the blessings of heaven until I get there and we can enjoy it together. Love, Bill. If any of you at this time would like to make any personal comments, this would be the time to do it. Thank you.
Good morning, guys. My name is Court. I'm one of her grandchildren. Growing up, we always went over to their house, and I remember first thing I got in is I would go up and I would see her sitting by her painting, watching Bob Ross on the TV, and I would just sit there next to her and just watch. It was one thing I was always fascinated with growing up is how you can take so many different colors and make them so beautiful. And I believe, what Grandma was painting was just the work of God, and seeing that. But, seeing her grow up and be artistic, and just seeing how beautiful the world is and how just like God paints it, she painted it just as beautiful. Every frame she put with every painting matched, and she was picky about which one went with what painting. So she was very picky till the very last detail. But I remember art kids growing up, and art projects we'd do in the kitchen. Snacks she would give us, little fruit cups. But she was always one of the most beautiful artists I ever was lucky to be blessed with. And she's taught me to see this world just the way God made it, and it's the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen. And so, yeah, I'm very blessed that she's been an inspiration to me in my artwork, my photography, and all my art, because without her in my life, I really wouldn't be where I'm at today. So, thank you.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm Mary Lou Sanders. I'm Jean's mother, and Faith is my daughter-in-law, but I consider her my other daughter. Bill and Ruby were so good to me when I was in rehab in Oklahoma City at Valor. They came to see me every day except Sunday and always brought me a treat. I'm so thankful that I got to know them so well. I will miss Ruby so much, and I will always love her and Bill. Thank you.
I'm Jamie, I'm her granddaughter, and there's just two words that whenever I hear them, I will always think of my grandma. The first one is precious, and the second one is fiddlesticks.
My name is Matt. I didn't know her very long. Kind of a weird story. I've been all over Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas and some other places preaching. Met a lot of people. Never met one like her. Let me gather myself. I've met a lot of people. And I've never met somebody that I felt was so close to God. So we had COVID going through our business. The this time last year. And my helper came down with COVID. His dad was in the hospital for 4 weeks. And I called Ruby and I said, "Hey, I need a favor." Because I thought that she was the closest person to God. And she said, "I will make it happen." And she didn't say anything else. And I was like, okay. And the next day, they started getting better. Thank you.
The Bible tells us about several men who were fishers of fish and who became fishers of people. It's really incredible to hear the story of one who was a fisher of people and who later in life became the king of the fish. It's a special thing to be part of a family coming together for the final public telling of a life. And I want to thank all of those who shared memories and stories and part of her legacy here today. At this time, we're going to continue with another song as we continue through the service.
Number 601, My God and I. My God and I go in the fields together. We walk and talk as good friends should and do. We clasp our hands, our voices ring with laughter. My God and I walk through the meadow. We clasp our hands, our voices ring with laughter. My God and I walk through the meadow. He tells me of the years that went before me, when heavenly plans were made for you to be. When all was but a dream of dim conception, to come to life, earth's verdant glory see. When all was but a dream of dim conception, to come to life, earth's verdant glory see. My God and I will go for air together. We'll walk and talk as good friends should and do. This earth will pass, and with it common trifles. But God and I will go unendingly. This earth will pass, and with it common trifles. But God and I will go unendingly.
Ruby Carol Rotalski Oden, age 81, celebrated her heavenly birthday on July 10th, 2021, at her home under hospice care in Oklahoma City with her family at her side. She was earthly born on January 6, 1940, to John and Mary Rotalski in Albany, New York. She was the oldest of 9 children. She was preceded in death by her parents, her brother Jonathan, and her sister Jeanette. She is survived by her loving spouse, Bill Oden, her children, Faith and Jean Sanders, Jim and Mai Oden, Bob and Judah Oden, and Tim Oden. 7 grandchildren, Jamie and Brian Bates, Robert and Meredith Duncan, Michael Oden, Phil and Susie Oden, Court Duncan, Ricky Oden, and Devontae Oden, and 5 great-grandchildren, Aiden, Rylan, and Morgan Bates, and Moses and Daisy Duncan. Ruby was known for her beautiful smile, her elegant stature. She was welcoming and compassionate with everyone she met. Ruby was a young widow with 3 small children under the age of 4 when she met and fell in love with a young airman, Bill Oden, in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. They only needed 1 date, and it lasted for a glorious 58 years. He was her one and only. She was an artist, a seamstress, and a homemaker. She was an avid fisherman, a hobby she shared with her son Jim and her grandchildren. She loved working with children and sharing her love of art. She always had an age-appropriate craft project for the grandchildren and great-grandchildren at every family gathering. Her greatest love was always for the Lord. She lived her entire life in the service of the Lord as a missionary with her husband Bill, whether it be in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Nebraska, Texas, Wisconsin, or Oklahoma. She will be greatly missed by all who know and love her. And finally, a passage that those who knew and loved her most understood to describe her further, in Proverbs 31, beginning in verse 10. A wife of noble character who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. It is for these reasons and many others that we've gathered today, and her children and her husband and all of those gathered here bring her honor and praise for all that Ruby has done in this life and the reward that she receives today in the next.
No Tears in Heaven, number 882. And are we glad for that? No tears in heaven, no sorrow given. All will be glory in that land. There'll be no sadness, all will be gladness when we shall join that happy band. And there'll be no tears, no tears, no tears up there. Sorrow and pain will all have flown. There'll be no tears, no tears, no tears up there, no tears in heaven will be known. Glory is waiting, waiting up yonder, where we shall spend an endless day. There with our Savior will be forever, where no more sorrow can dismay, and there'll be no tears, no tears, no tears up there. Sorrow and pain will all have flown, and there'll be no tears, no tears, no tears up there, no tears in heaven will be known. Some morning yonder we'll cease to ponder o'er things this life has brought to view. All will be clearer, save ones be dearer, in heaven where all will be made new. And there'll be no tears, no tears, no tears up there. Sorrow and pain will all have flown, and there'll be no tears, no tears, no tears up there. No tears in heaven will be known.
The passage that Kent read to us from Proverbs 31, starting verse 10. I'm not going to read it again, but it begins with an excellent wife who can find, for her worth is far above jewels. And Bill told me when I went over there just probably a couple hours, maybe an hour after Ruby had passed, he said, I want you to preach Proverbs 31. He said, Ruby is my Proverbs 31. And that passage, as I was listening to Kent read it, I was thinking about that, and I thought, that really does describe, but I think so much so for you, Bill, it describes Ruby. I could see her in all of those phrases of praise to the godly woman. She did live those things. Her family is a testimony to that, and the church is a testimony to that as well. The phrase kept coming up during the reading of the testimony. The testimonies is that Ruby was a very precious, and she is a very precious person. And I say is a very precious person because I'm convinced with all my being that Ruby is alive today in the presence of God. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to say today, knowing Ruby, knowing how precious of a person she is, when I was around her, I don't know, you probably got this too, but when I was around her, I thought about that. I thought about how precious she is. And she's just a very sweet lady. And so I thought about, when she passed away, I thought about Psalm 116, verse 15, that says, precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his godly ones. Precious. Precious. That's kind of an unusual thing to say about death. When you think about it, I mean, we seldom think of death as a precious thing. It's a terrible thing, something we avoid at all costs. Death is hateful to us. But it says in this text, precious to the Lord. What does the psalmist mean when he said precious? Well, precious is something of great worth or value. It's held in honor, highly respected, priceless, rare, not necessarily a costly thing, something that costs a lot, even though it might be that. What it costs has nothing to do with the word precious. It's something that is of great value to you. It might be something very small and of little monetary value, but because of what it means to you, it is precious. Precious is that wedding ring that you wear on your finger. It represents a relationship. It might have cost thousands of dollars, and it might have cost $100. The monetary value isn't the issue because it's precious for other reasons. Precious. It's valuable to you for what it represents. A commitment of love, a relationship that you value. Precious. Precious is that newborn daughter. You surround her with love and protection. You care for her every need. She's precious to you because she's yours. She's precious because you've held her in your arms and rocked her to sleep and sung lullabies to her, and you've bonded with that little bundle of joy. So she's precious. Precious is something you're willing to sell everything you have for that one item that is so precious to you. Precious is worth all you own. And I sensed that when I was with the family. I went over to the family shortly after Ruby passed from this life into the presence of the Lord. And I was thinking of this passage when I drove over there. And I went in and I saw Ruby lying there. I saw the family standing around. And there's always kind of a sense of worry or concern, or I don't know how to describe it. I've been to those situations hundreds of times over the years. But as I went in, I thought, God says this is precious. This is a precious moment. And I was thinking about how precious that very moment was. And I looked around the room and I started thinking about her spirit leaving her body as she stopped breathing. We don't see it, but it really happened. Her spirit rose up out of her body. And I thought of the angels. The Bible says this happens to God's children. That angels and I thought about that angels just a few moments earlier, a few moments before I arrived there, angels were in that very room. And we didn't see them, but they were there in that room where we were all standing around, and how angels were there to observe Ruby's passing. Why would they do that? Because it's precious. It's precious to the Lord. And they were there to escort her as a spirit now, to escort her into the very presence of God. And I remember kind of looking around. Nobody noticed me doing that, but I'm kind of looking around thinking that by chance I might see one of the angels that were lingering to watch over her body and over us. All I could see was Ruby's loved ones. But I thought of the wonder of it. I mean, if an angel appeared to us in this room right now, it'd probably scare us all to death. I mean, these were very powerful, dynamic beings. And there may be angels in this room right now, but we don't see them. And I thought about, there's an angel in this room when I was over at your house, Bill. There's an angel here. And I thought about the reality of it all. Not what was visible to us humans, not to our human eyes. We couldn't really see what was going on in the spirit realm into which Ruby had now stepped. All we could see was a dear, sweet woman. The remains, a sister, mother, wife, a Proverbs 31, whom we had known over the years to simply stop breathing. But there was so much more going on. The reality was that Ruby was experiencing wonderful things that we don't quite understand. I like Paul one time, he writes in the letter of Philippians, a passage we're very familiar with, for to me to live is Christ and to die is gain. We hear that verse a lot, but seldom do they go on and read the rest of the text. Paul is in prison when he wrote this, and it appears he's facing a life or death situation because he somehow is able to decide whether or not to defend his life or let it go. And this is what he says, for to me to live is Christ and to die is gain. Did you hear that? To live is Christ, but to die is gain. It's more. He says, but if I am to live on in the flesh, this will mean fruitful labor for me. And I do not know which to choose. But I am hard pressed from both directions, having the desire to depart and be with Christ. Listen, here's the catch. My desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is very much better. Very much better. I don't think that most of us, or I think most of us aren't really sure about that. Oh, we say, yes, it's better, but we cling to this life, don't we? As though what we say we believe wasn't true. It's like the preacher that was preaching and asked everyone, would everyone like to go to heaven? Raise your hand. And everybody raised their hand, and because everybody wanted to go to him. And there was a guy on the front row that didn't raise his hand. And it caught him by surprise. He says, don't you want to go to heaven? And he said, yes. He said, well, why didn't you raise your hand? And he said, well, I thought you meant right now. When the Apostle Paul was once permitted to visit heaven, boy, that must have been an experience. And he said that he saw things that were so wonderful that he wasn't permitted to write about it. Wow. What he did tell us is that it's better over there. Where? Well, where Ruby is. It's better there. Better than where? Better than here. That's what he's saying. It's better than what? It's better than this life. It's better than this life. This life is wonderful, but it's better over there. I mean, Thanksgiving dinner and fellowship with my family, it's better than that. Christmas time with my family and seeing them opening gifts and the joy and the excitement that the children have and all that's going on with that, it's better than that. Going on vacations to Disney World, better than that. Camping trips and fishing and noodling for catfish at a calm, peaceful stream in the mountains. It's better than that. That's what Paul's saying. It's better over there. It's better because we'll see Jesus. Wow. This is what Paul, he actually mentions that as part of it. He says, to depart and be with Christ. It's better because I'll depart and be with Christ. You see, we're going to the throne of Jesus. Ruby has gone to the throne of Jesus, and she will sit with him as his sister. Would you like to put your arms around Jesus and tell him thank you for all the good things that he's done for you in your life, for saving you, for going to the cross for you? Yeah, well, Ruby's able to do that. We will also see God the Father. It's better because we'll see God the Father. That's pretty exciting to think about. You read the descriptions of God. He's on a throne. There's millions, it says literally in the Hebrew and Greek, there's millions and millions of angels around his throne. They're all singing praises to him. I mean, how many of you have been in large auditoriums where you're singing songs of praise to God? Well, imagine millions and millions of angels. And the Bible says that Ruby and those of us who follow her will sit down at the throne of Jesus, at God's throne, and hear the singing of praise. Heaven is very much better. And this is one I like because it'll be one big family reunion. And we'll enter into that family reunion and enter into the banquet. How many of you like family reunions? Well, I love family reunions. You know, my parents grew up on a farm, and we'd go out to that farm, and there'd be, 30 or 50 people there, and we'd big, huge, giant table of food, and we'd all sit around that food and eat together and laugh together and tell stories together and just have such a good time. And Paul says it's going to be better than that, but it's going to include that. There's a verse that I like, Jesus' description of heaven. It's interesting that almost every time Jesus describes heaven, you know what he describes it as? A banquet. He describes it as a banquet. Matthew 8, verse 11. And I say to you that many shall come from east and west and recline at the table with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. Sitting around a great dinner table, enjoying the company. We'll look around and we'll see one another there and all our loved ones who have gone on before us, and we'll see Ruby there at the table. And she'll be saving a place for you, Bill. We'll see her there. And we'll laugh together and speak of days gone by. Yes, heaven, Paul says, will be very much better. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his godly ones. And God knows we can't see with his eyes. We see tragedy. He sees the wonder. We feel the pain. He feels the joy. It is painful for us. It's terrible. It's hateful to lose a loved one. But to God, it's precious. And to Ruby, it's wonderful. I thought of this passage again while I was standing by her bed before she went home to the Lord. She was awake then and looking at me. She couldn't help but smile because that's Ruby. She smiled that beautiful smile of hers. And I bent over the bed and I hugged her. I hugged her around the neck like I had hugged her many times here at church. And when I heard that she died, when she passed away just a day later, my temptation was to think, well, at least I was able to hug her for the last time. But no, I didn't. I will see her again. I will hug her neck again, as I have done so many times here at church. I will hug her neck again, and she will hug me. Jesus came, this is a curse. It's the best we can say of it. The Bible calls it that. But Jesus came to reverse the curse, to put to death. You say, well, she's dead. Well, she ain't going to stay that way. Because Jesus defeated death. And he destroyed death. And he's going to return, and that'll be the end. Now, you say, well, it's not going to happen just at this moment, okay? Well, maybe it will. Maybe it'll happen before I finish this lesson. If it does, I'm going to close with a passage that describes what will happen if it happens before I finish reading this passage. We do not want you to be uninformed, Paul says, brethren, about those who are asleep. And Paul, after Jesus, people quit referring to death as death. They started referring to death as sleep, because sleep's temporary and you wake up from it. And so in the Bible, Paul and the other writers start referring to death as sleep. That you may not grieve as do the rest who have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so, God will bring with him those who have fallen asleep in Jesus. Now, what happens is Ruby has gone to be with Jesus, her spirit. When Jesus returns, he's going to bring her spirit back with him, along with all those who have died, but their spirits are with him. He's going to bring all those spirits back. Even so, God will bring with him those who have fallen asleep in Jesus. For this we say to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord shall not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. What happens is the body comes out of the tomb and the spirit goes back into the body. But it's going to be a new body. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And thus we shall always be with the Lord. You know how he ends that passage? Therefore, comfort one another with these words. Do they comfort you? They do me. I've lost significant numbers of my family. And this passage comforts me because it says I'm going to see them again. It says this is not the final word. We're not here to say goodbye to Ruby. We're here to say see you later. Let's close with a prayer. Father, I know you understand our pain. Even you allowed yourself to experience it through Jesus when he too wept at the funeral of his close friend Lazarus. Death is not something to laugh at, but we can find peace in it, Father. I pray that you will grant us through our tears to get just a glimpse of the reality that Ruby's passing might become precious to us too. Thank you for Jesus and the fact of his resurrection from the dead that assures us that this is not the end for Ruby or for us, but really it's the beginning of something so wonderful that is beyond description. Father, thank you for the life of Ruby, who has inspired us all to greater service in life for you. And Father, I ask that you now comfort the family, fill each one of them with your spirit. Let them sense your presence. Let them feel it, Father, your presence, and be strengthened by it. It's in Jesus I pray. Amen. That concludes the service for today. There is a meal across the way. It's just right across the alley there. And so be headed that way and grab you something to eat. Everybody stand up. Let me take away the awkward moment. May God richly bless you and Jesus give you peace. You're dismissed.